Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And for those of you who like these type of videos, please remember to click like down below. You guys know there's a dislike bot running. This video is going to get like 100 dislikes in the first 30 seconds it's up. So if you guys would please offset that, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. But over to the point. One of my subscribers linked me a video a couple days ago that Jeff Cavalier, aka Athlean-X, put up discussing glutes. And you guys know glutes for the sloots is one of my favorite topics. And my thoughts on what he said in the video, because some people said, hey, you know, are you going to agree or disagree with this? Because we know you're big on glute training. He's promoting this. I'm going to largely agree with what Jeff said here. And he's coming at it from a physical therapist perspective, but he did address the athlete side. And what is it that I tell all you guys, or at least all my clients? We know the importance of glute training, right? Underdeveloped glutes, weak glutes will leave you weak at everything that you do. I don't care whether it's your squat and your deadlift or sprinting, jumping, anything you do out on a playing field. Glutes are one of the most important, if not possibly the most important muscle that you really need to focus on if you want explosive power. Okay, if you want explosive power, and I don't care for what purpose. I don't care whether it's to kick, to jump, to sprint, to squat a heavy barbell. Doesn't matter. Glutes are critical for power. And the point that he made about injuries and compensatory strength, he's absolutely right. Absolutely 100% right. Glute weaknesses will come out massively on your lifts. People who have weak glutes, you can see it when they squat. You can see it when people deadlift, and it will cause compensatory strength issues. It's exactly what he talked about. People who tend to have problems with loading their squat, they can't stay stable, they tend to twist to one side or shift. That's generally a glute issue. That's usually one of the biggest causes. It's weak glutes. So again, let's come over to the point with that. People might say, well, Jeff doesn't have big, strong glutes. Well, he doesn't appear to, but he's still right. He's still absolutely right. And this is a case of where I might sometimes say that strength coaching and physical therapy don't always overlap very well, and they can actually interfere with each other. But the way that he approached this from a physical therapist side, he's right, even from a coaching perspective. He's right on that one. Weak glutes cause compensatory strength issues in athletes. They cause imbalances. They can cause technical breakdown. They can be a problem. And weak glutes do contribute to pulling your lower back. They cause lower back strains. Weak glutes can contribute to hamstring pulls, hamstring tears. In fact, a lot of times when you guys think of hamstring injuries, it's not always your hamstrings that causes you to tear a hamstring. Not always what causes you to pull a hamstring. A lot of times it could be a weak lower back, weak glutes, things like that. So you need to train these things. Now, a lot of my clients out there, you guys know, what lifts do you all do? I bet you if people out there were to step back and think about what 3 lifts do you think all of my clients do, every single client on my roster does these 3 lifts without fail. All of them. And no, it's not the squat, bench, and deadlift. And my clients will go look at their list, or all of them who will listen because they listen to these videos, and they're going to go, yep, we do all 3 of those. They all box squat, they all sumo deadlift, they all do good mornings. And I think that might come as a surprise to a lot of people, that those 3 are something that every single one of my clients do every single week. I don't have a single client who doesn't do all 3 of those lifts. Not one, and I won't. And moving forward, if I'm writing any programs for people that I hand out, not necessarily cookie cutter programs, all 3 of those lifts are going to be there every single time. Because I don't consider them to be optional lifts for an athlete. I really don't. And I'd love to prescribe them to the general populace, but they can't box squat. The general population can't box squat because they can't figure out how to get to parallel. They think a 20-inch box or an 18-inch box is parallel when their parallel might need a 10-inch box. But when you look at all 3 of those exercises, they're all very, very glute dominant. You use a lot of glute in a properly performed box squat, and generally more glute than sometimes on a normal back squat. Right? We know that. Sumo deadlift uses a ton of glute, a ton of hamstring too, actually. It tends to use more lower body than upper body relative to a conventional deadlift. It's slightly biased in that direction in terms of back versus glutes, hamstrings, quads, things like that. And then good mornings. And good mornings actually are a good glute exercise. So what Jeff recommended here, and I guess this is where the real questions are going to be, is the cable pull through. I prescribe the cable pull through in a cookie cutter program. So I'm not against the exercise. So if people are going to wonder, how do I feel about the pull through? I pointed out in my original Ice Cream Fitness that I have a bunch of extra lower back work and things like that in there. For those who go back and look at that original program I put out, it's like my third YouTube video ever, even before this channel existed, because this is my second fitness channel. Third video ever. I had like 15 subscribers when I made it, right? When I made that video. I said people who don't have a hyperextension bench, who don't have access to one, should do cable pull-throughs, right? I said that even then. It's in the program. So one of the first videos I ever made, probably the most popular video I've ever made, on this channel at least, has been that video, and I prescribed cable pull-throughs in it many years ago. So I think they're good exercise. I think they're a good exercise. Do I necessarily have my current clients do them? No, not necessarily, because I prefer a lot of bigger movements for the glutes. A lot of my guys do glute bridges. Some of them do hip thrusts. I'm not always big on the hip thrust, but it's not for reasons that people would think. It's a case of most people don't have the equipment to safely do a hip thrust. Now, a lot of you are going, well, I can safely do a hip thrust. Well, you're probably really weak. Your idea of a hip thrust is not someone who's strong. If I'm taking people who are actually training heavy and they're strong, getting them set up to safely do a hip thrust, you're not going to do it on the edge of a bench sometimes. Right? Maybe certain benches. You're not going to do it on the bench I have. They're going to do it on the bench that I have. You're going to do it on the benches that a lot of people have. You need actually either specialty equipment for it, or you need to have the right type of big pads that you can lay back on. Like if you have some of the stackable pads that are wide enough and large enough, you can do them on that. But benches tend to tip over. When you start getting 300 plus pounds on the bar, benches tend to tip over on the hip thrusts. And people would say, well, why does anyone need that much weight? Because we need strong glutes. You need to be working towards doing that much weight. I've seen guys out there who do hip thrusts with 500 pounds for reps. So yeah, you're going to get tipped over if you're not careful. But I tend to assign a lot of glute bridges. We do things like that, or we do variations of good mornings. But a lot of times, I think for a lot of people, those first three will cover the majority of your glute development. And if you need additional glute development, I will prescribe other stuff for people. But usually my first go-to is going to be something like a glute bridge. Now, the difference here is that the cable pull-through is easier to set up. In other words, if a person really just needs a very small movement to do that, I can see why Jeff would prescribe that. Because for me, usually, people who have weak rear delts, weak upper backs and things, sometimes I'll prescribe certain barbell movements for it, like basically almost a rear delt type pendlay row, or just more pulling in general. But the face pull also works also. And the difference here is that he's saying that basically for him, this is like the face pull for the glutes. And I can see that, I can appreciate that, and I can totally get where he's coming from with it. I can see that. It's not to say that I'm going to run around prescribing it, because not everyone has access to cables. And so the difference for me is that because I have a lot of clients who have home gyms, I have a home gym, things like that aren't really an option for us, right? They're not really an option, a bunch of cable movements. And it's not like it's a special exercise that brings anything particularly unique that these other things aren't giving you. It's just that it's really easy to set up. If you have access to a cable station like that, and you don't want to spend the extra time to load a whole barbell up for something like a glute bridge, and you're doing it towards the end of a workout, it's just like a face pull in that it's easy to set up. Cables, bands, and things like that make face pulls really easy. And of course, bands make it easy, but bands are much harder to do on a pull-through. It's a more finesse movement. And so I would look at that and say, well, this is only for people who have access to cables. And there are other exercises that do just as good of a job, if not better, things like a glute bridge for exactly what he's doing there, but it is more work to set it up, particularly once you build a strength base. When you start having to load up 300+ pounds every single time you want to do glute bridge, you've got to kind of schedule your gym time around that. Whereas in that pull-through that he has, it's easy for someone to just come in and do who has a glute weakness. And will that exercise help for someone who has a legitimate glute weakness, especially early on? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it will absolutely work the way that he prescribes it. So I don't see an issue there. I don't have a problem with that. But I see that as more of my personal take on it. It's more of a convenience lift for people who are in a gym with multiple cable stations and maybe they don't always have the time at the end of a workout to set up a barbell or something else for some of the bigger glute exercises. But for me, generally, just to make sure that we don't get glute issues at the start, all of my clients do box squats, sumo deadlifts, good mornings. Those are mainstays everybody does year round. And not everybody has to do secondary exercises to build their glutes, or they may not need to do them year round. So we don't always prescribe stuff like that, even though I'm personally doing extra glute work. But all in all, based upon what I saw here, I'm going to largely agree with Jeff's video. I'm going to say, yeah, he's pretty much right. Nothing in there did I find disagreeable. Nothing at all, and I tend to agree. Glutes are a critical muscle for performance. They're a critical muscle for injury prevention, and they're a critical muscle for those of you who are saying, oh, I want to attract the opposite sex. The glutes are probably the single most important muscle for that. I don't care if you're a girl or a guy. Glutes are the most important muscle. Like, guys standing around thinking that your biceps are more important than your glutes for getting girls are idiots. You don't know anything about women if you think that's the case. Misallocation of resources. You need to be training your glutes. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.